Shalom, dear Havarim. This is Devorah Kalik from Bless Israel Network, and I want to welcome you to a very special edition of Lev HaTorah, Heartbeat of the Torah. Today, I want to do a special and focus on the prayers of Israel. And we non-Jewish members of Israel, who are grafted into Israel, often don't realize the importance of the Jewish prayer book, the Siddur, and just how connected Yeshua was to these prayers. In fact, what we call the Lord's Prayer, actually in the prayer that Yeshua taught us, and taught to his disciples, is actually a compilation, if you will, of one-liners from the prayers that they were already praying in his day. Though there was not an actual Siddur in place, that came, much later, maybe possibly, 1,000 or 1,100 years ago. The prayers were part of the oral tradition. Of course, they were scriptural, and they were passed down from father to son, and the appropriate prayers for women were passed down from the mother to the daughter. They were part of the oral tradition, but as I said, they weren't compiled until much later in the written Siddurim, the written Jewish prayer books that we have now. They were the prayers that were said in the temple during the time of the sacrifices, which took place in the morning, shacharit, in the midday, called mincha, and in the evening, called aravit. In fact, the prayers today that we say are in commemoration of the temple service, and especially the prayer known as the Amidah, the standing prayer. Now, in Acts 1:14 and in 2:42, we see a situation there where the Talmidim, the disciples of Yeshua, are continuing in the prayers, it says. And in the English, in one place it says in prayer, and the other, the other section, the other part in Acts 2:42, I think also says in prayer or prayers. So there's a bias here in the English that is only visible if you know the Greek or you have, access to a Greek New Testament. And in actuality, before the word prayer, in both situations, in Acts 1:14 and Acts 2:42, there is a definite article, meaning the is before. In let's see here, in Acts 1:14, it says in the prayer. This is most certainly referring to the Amidah and the 18 benedictions or blessings of the standing prayer. This is known in Judaism and always has been known as the prayer. In Acts 2:42, it says in the prayers. And this can only be referring to not just the Amidah, but all the liturgical prayers that we use in the synagogue liturgy today, though the prayers at that time were only in some rudimentary form, but today we have them written down in the Jewish prayer book, the Jewish Siddur, for all of us. Now today we're going to be learning about what Rabbi Shapira calls, and all Judaism really calls, the cornerstone prayer of all Jewish prayer. The one that emphatically declares the belief in the one true God of Israel. This prayer, I'm sure you've probably heard of it. Many of you have, and if you haven't, that's okay. It's called the Shema. And I want to suggest to you that the Shema should not only be the declaration of the Jewish people, but it should also be the cornerstone prayer and declaration for all of us who believe in Yeshua as the Messiah of Israel. So I'm going to be reading also from the commentary of the new Ahavat Olam Siddur. Now this is a Shabbat Siddur. It's only for Shabbat, and there are lots of Siddurs that are full for the daily prayers that we say every day. So I want to, and I want to let you know that this was published by Ahavat Ami Ministries. Rabbi Stephen A. Bernstein also contributed, along with several of the students of Yeshivat Shuvu. The commentary was written by my dear friend and my rabbi, who I'm just so grateful for. Okay, I'm getting emotional. This is partly an age thing, and it's also a season where we're really asking for the comfort of God, so I'm kind of emotional. Anyway, it was written, the commentary in here was written by Itzhak Shapira, and if you don't have yet this beautiful Siddur, you are going to want to get it. It is unique. There's nothing like this in the world for Messianic Jews and for Messianic Gentiles. And it's a Jewish prayer book. It's fully Jewish, traditional, that properly represents Yeshua of Nazareth, Jesus of Nazareth, as he was and as he still is, a Jewish Messiah. Well, there's actually 3 paragraphs to the Shema, all from the scriptures. Today, we're only going to focus on part of the first paragraph. It begins, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one Lord. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might." And in Hebrew, "Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'kol nafshecha uv'kol meodecha." In Hebrew, Shema does not just mean hear, though that's how it's translated, but it means hear and obey. In Jewish thought, Shema means to actively listen and obey what you are hearing. If you don't obey, then you really haven't heard it all. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. God is commanding us with these words, the God of Israel, and he's commanding Israel to believe in him as the one and only God, and then to obey him. But in the time to come, rather, in the Messianic age, it will not only be the Jews who will obey him and who will recognize him and acknowledge him, the God of Israel. It will be for all mankind. And so those of us who are not Jewish, who are saying this prayer today, are really fulfilling prophecy about the nations coming in to Israel and declaring and recognizing and acknowledging that he, the God of Israel, is the only God. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, and you can find those verses, by the way, that declare that in Jeremiah 31:33 and in Isaiah 11:9 and 10, just to name a few. There are quite a few others. Okay, if you were to look at a Torah scroll, you would actually immediately notice something in the place where the Shema is written in Deuteronomy 6. And the first word, Shema, the letter Ayin, which is the ah sound, is very large compared to all the other letters. And if you get this Siddur, you will see it in the commentary and actually in the prayer itself, the written in the Hebrew. So the Shema, in the Shema, the first word, the Ayin is enlarged. And in the last word, Echad, which means one, the letter Dalet, the D sound, is also larger than the other letters. Both of these letters stand out very conspicuously. Why? Well, our Jewish sages of blessed memory say that it is because the Ayin and the Dalet spell the word Ed, which means witness. Rabbi Itzhak Shapira writes in the commentary of this, again, this beautiful Ahavat Olam Siddur, he says this: this refers to our calling to be testifiers of Hashem's kingdom. The Shema represents all 613 mitzvot or commandments. It also indicates the 3 times of prayer, morning, afternoon, and evening, shacharit, mincha, and aravit, or me'ariv. Shema, it is our tradition to close our eyes and focus our minds and hearts toward Jerusalem. Let me explain what Rabbi Shapira said. The letters which form the word Shema, which are Shin, Mem, and Ayin, serve as an acronym for the 3 times of the daily prayer. Shacharit, the word for morning, starts with the letter Shin, the SH sound in Shema. Mincha is the word for afternoon, and it begins with the letter Mem, the M sound in the word Shema. You can hear it. And the word Aravit is the word for evening, for the evening prayers, and it begins with the letter Ayin, the Ah sound in Shema. Thus, saying the word Shema each day serves to remind us that we are to pray morning, midday, and evening, beginning with this declaration. Rabbi Shapira continues on the word Echad, which means one. And he says, the word Echad does not mean an absolute unity as does the word Yechid, which actually is a derivative of the word Echad, but rather Echad is a compound unity. So it may interest you to know that during Yeshua's day in Second Temple period Judaism, praying 3 times a day was already very well established. This means that our Messiah, Yeshua, would have prayed 3 times a day, Shacharit, Mincha, and Aravit. Now, Rabbi Shapira continues in his commentary, Yeshua commanded us I'll go on. Yeshua commanded us to say the Shema 3 times a day, as we read in Mark 12:28-30. Which is the most important mitzvah of them all? Yeshua answered, the most important is Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you are to love Adonai your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your understanding, and with all your strength. Rabbi writes, Yeshua added to the prayer the words Uvchol Madacha, and with all your understanding, giving a chidush, a renewal to the Torah, but not changing it. The word Madacha is rooted in the word da'at, understanding, Sometimes it's translated as knowledge. The essence, according to Yeshua, Rabbi Shapiro writes, is not just the asiyah, the doing or fulfilling, but also the da'at, the understanding or revelation, as we fulfill the mitzvot. In Pirkei Avot, it is written, the essence is not the study, but the fulfillment. The fulfillment. He then explains, as I just said, in Pirkei Avot, which is a beautiful section of the Mishnah called the Ethics of the Fathers. It is written, the essence is not the study, but the fulfillment. Rabbi Shapira writes, Yeshua took it a step further, and he declares, the essence is not the action, but the revelation. In other words, this is exactly what our Messiah, Yeshua, did. He fulfilled the commandments with action. But here's the shocker. He did not fulfill them in the sense of we don't need to. That's not what this means. He did fulfill the action, but he did not do them in place of us. In other words, for us, so we don't have to. Rather, what he did is he taught us the proper interpretation and the internal meaning so that we could do the commandments properly and with the right heart intention. Let's move on to the next section of the Shema, which begins, which I already read to you, ve'ahavta, and you shall love. You shall love Hashem your God with all your heart and with all your soul. It goes on. I'm just going to focus for now on the words and the understanding in Hebrew of ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. What does ve'ahavta mean? In English, we use the word love. It means love, and you shall love. We use this word love for lots of things. I love my cat or my dog. I love ice cream. I love the snow. I love my mom and dad. We're talking about feelings here, or a love of something which gives us pleasure. In Jewish thought, love is not passive, nor is love a feeling. Love is an action. When we're talking about loving God, it means that we will do certain things to demonstrate that love, that we love him. We obey his commandments. Yeshua, Jesus, said it in this way in John 14:15. If you love me, you will keep my commandments, my mitzvot. Yeshua uses the same word that is used in Deuteronomy 6:5, only it says there, ahavtam. It's in the ahavtam is in the, ahavta rather, is in the singular, and ahavtam is in the you plural. So Yeshua is referring to the you plural when he says ahavtam. Ahava means love, as I already said. You hear the action. Loving Yeshua means that you and I will guard his commandments. We will keep them. In Hebrew, this means you will do them. Those of us who live in the Western world are very influenced by Greco-Roman thinking. Our world is steeped in knowledge and philosophy. We somehow think that if we understand it here, it means that we are doing enough. In Jewish thought, knowledge, da'at, or understanding, is just the beginning. That revelation knowledge has to be applied as God commanded us. This is what the sages were saying in Pirkei Avot, which I mentioned to you a few minutes ago. If we don't apply what we know, what we understand, if we don't do it, then we really have not learned a thing. God wants us to do in order to show our love for him. And that is what Yeshua said also. And it's one of the most important things that he came to this earth to teach us and to show us by how he lived and what he did. I need to introduce to some of you a kosher method of study that will help us all to get a deeper understanding of what love really means. And some of you know about this because I've talked about it before, but in case you're new, I want to say that this is called gematria, and it's the study of the numerical value of Hebrew words in order to understand other word relationships that reveal some other not so obvious truths from the surface of the meaning. This is absolutely not the world's practice or system of numerology, which is based on the occult to guide one's life. Heaven forbid. This is an ancient biblical system of interpretation established by the Jewish sages. And we can see it used by Yeshua in the Revelation, for example. This is the number 666 there. So I want to tell you that it only works with the Hebrew and is not valid in any other language. Even with the Greek, you have to take it back to whatever the Hebrew word is, and then, of course, it can be used. Hebrew is the tongue of angels that Paul refers to in 1 Corinthians 13. It's also the pure language, which Zephaniah refers to in Zephaniah 3:9. And he tells us that it will be the language that will be spoken. We will all speak in the Messianic age. This is what would be called a divine reversal of what happened at the Tower of Babel, where everyone was speaking Hebrew, but because they were using it for an unholy purpose, God scattered the nations by scattering their tongues, by making them speak a different language. We will be in the Messianic age restored to the holy tongue, the tongue of angels that Shaul calls it in 1 Corinthians. So there's no other language like Hebrew, people. I know many of you know this, but because it wasn't developed by human beings. There's no other language like this because it was developed by God himself. It's a pictorial, biological, agricultural, mathematical, and musical language. This is why studying the Bible in Hebrew opens up an entirely different world to us for knowing, to teach us to know the God of Israel and his Messiah. So we continue. Every Hebrew letter has a numerical value. The letters were used as numbers thousands of years ago, way before the Arabic numeral system came into being. If you look at a Hebrew Bible, you will see that the letters are used to mark verses and chapter numbers. Well, earlier, I mentioned that there are enlarged letters, the letter Ayin at the end of the word Shema, and the letter Dalet at the end of the word Echad. They are bigger than the other letters. These enlarged letters are saying, hey, there's something to notice here. Pay attention. Well, I mentioned that Ayin Dalet spells the word aid, which means witness. The gematria, the numerical value of aid, is 74. The phrase Ani Ahava, which means I love, is also 74. This teaches us that we are a true witness only when we demonstrate our love for God. But it's not only about loving God. In Mark 12:31, Yeshua continued answering the question, which is the greatest mitzvah? Commandment. He answers, he declares the Shema, and then he says, this is the first mitzvah, the first commandment. And the second is similar to it. There he said, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no mitzvah, there is no commandment greater than these. Yeshua was quoting when he said, love your neighbor as yourself, Leviticus 19, verse 18. Why does he tie these two commandments together? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because the Hebrew word ve'ahavta ties them together in both places. In Leviticus, it says, and back in the Shema in Deuteronomy 6, it says, ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha. You shall love the Lord your God. And in Leviticus 19:18, it says, ve'ahavta le'reacha. You shall love your neighbor. These two commandments are a package deal, my friends. All of the 613 commandments in the Torah fit into one of these two buckets. Either love God or love your neighbor. The commandments spell out in detail in the Torah how to demonstrate that love. Ani ahava, I love, means action. The action means and proves that you are a true witness and that I am a true witness. Yeshua is also clearly saying that if you love God, you will prove it by loving your neighbor. He said, love one another as I have loved you. Well, that's it for this special edition of Lev HaTorah on the Shema. I'm going to try to do some more and continue on with the Shema and the rest of the Ve'ahavta. Again, reading from our wonderful new Siddur. Go out and get this. You will not be sorry that you did. It is worth every penny. And I just want to mention also, if you are blessed by this and you want to study more Jewish roots, please go to our website, www.blessisraelnetwork.com, and you can find our programs on enrichment. We have several programs there for your interest. We also, of course, don't want you to miss our groundbreaking program connecting you to the Israeli body of Messiah called Revelation to the Nations. You can find that on our website also. Click on the tab that says programs and click on Revelation to the Nations, and you can watch programs where we interview our Israeli brethren so that you can get connected with them, because we provide their contact information so that you can develop your own personal relationship with them. Well, my friends, I want to say lehitraot and have a very good week, Shavua Tov, and hopefully I will see you again soon.